Okay, so just to sort of recap on what we did last time, very, very quickly, we had listened to some more complicated songs that didn't follow the standard pop song structure or rock song structure even. So we had listened to Bohemian Rhapsody and then a couple of songs by David Bowie. And the thing that seemed to tie those together was there was a sort of an operatic thing or a music hall type of thing or even a circus type of thing going on. So the more unusual songs had something else going with them, something dramatic. So I wanted to look at structure today and suggest that, you know, we might find some other things that you could look at to do with maybe structures of films or scripts or stories, you know, novels or whatever, that you can sort of go, well, that's interesting. Does that relate? Could I relate that to music in any shape or form? And what I'm suggesting is I think you can. All right. So shall we have a listen to, and this is what will make this recording very boring. So I might pause this bit and then you'll have to remind me to unpause it, all right? Because I'm sure people don't want to sit and listen to nothing for about 6 minutes, all right? So Stairway to Heaven. So if you want to conjure that up on your various devices, and we'll have a listen to that and we'll convene. That's why it's a good idea to pause the recording. Yeah, that's 8 minutes.
Definitely one way you get your money's worth on the jukebox.
Yes.
Right. The free bird next.
Yes. That's a good thought, actually, free bird. Now, what I was going to suggest here is that this one has got like a 3-act structure.
Yep.
It's got the, you know, introducing all the elements type of thing. Well, to a point, because if you, I'm just thinking about the narrative really, instead of it, because the drums don't come in until much later, but it's about the story. And of course, all of those elements are sort of there in that first part, which I would say goes up to about 4 minutes 19. I think when the drums come in, that's the second act.
Yep. Yep.
If that makes sense. Because it's drifting along on the same theme. As soon as the drums kick in, rhythmically it starts to change because he's following the vocal part. So you get those dunk, 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 those type of little bits that follow the vocal. And the guitar is obviously building as well at this point. So it starts to take a different direction, which again is, if you think about that as a 3-act structure in a play or something, it tends to be the type of thing that happens, right? And then I would say that the third part comes in, I like to call it like the heralding, like the fanfare guitar bit, diddle-a-dum, 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 and then you get a massive guitar solo, and it's completely changed gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like your third act. So it's now doing something you weren't expecting, if you see what I mean. If you were hearing that song for the first time, that's not what you expect. And then interestingly, at that very end part, it's almost like a James Bond film where you've had all the explosions and what have you, and, you know, and then the baddie's dead and all the rest of it. And then you get that little bit afterwards. Like everything's settled down.
Bohemian Rhapsody-esque.
Yes, that does it as well.
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is that's the type of, that's the type of thing that makes sense of that piece of music. All right? I mean, structurally makes sense of it. Do you all Think that's a reasonable assessment?
Yeah, I do. And the thing that I just wrote down, acoustic drums. And there's the one thing I picked up on, actually, I probably hadn't, obviously I heard it a billion times, but it's interesting. There's a vocal note before it goes into the solos. And it's like, oh,
Oh, right.
that I just picked up on anyway. There's something that he did lyrically with vocals before, just as like an intro into it. And I thought, oh, that's really, really cool. But the one thing that I wrote down actually was I wrote down undercurrent. In that second act, as you put it, it feels like it's gonna build.
Yes.
But you don't know when. And November Rain is very much the same as that. Before you get that classic solo at the end, there's that sort of like building thing going on. You can feel it in the music, but you don't know when it's going to happen.
Exactly. So again, that's the same thing if you watch a film, and that feeling of, trepidation that builds before when you start thinking there's something shifting, you can't quite put your finger on it. Okay. Is that all right, Lisa? Is that?
I'd never actually listened to that song all the way through.
Ah. Now.
I have now, yeah. I maybe because it was so long, I don't know, but I didn't realise how different it was all the way through, because I think I've only ever listened to the first part, and it's very spiritual.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realise until I looked at the lyrics, read the lyrics, and I didn't realise it was in these different.
Well, it's certainly otherworldly, because there's lots of references to fairies and the May Queen and all the rest of it. All right, and obviously, Stairway to Heaven. All right. I think again, maybe that's it's a good vehicle for that type of lyric, because I think we sort of said that last week, with Bohemian Rhapsody, because that's it is very sort of operatic. And it sort of does what you'd expect an opera to do, if you see what I mean. It's got lots of things, and again, we were sort of talking about the idea of like the variety show type of thing, or the circus thing, where you have lots of stuff happen that don't really go with one another, but sort of do. Because in your mind, that's the sort of thing that happens in a circus or a variety show. That there's a juxtaposition of things which makes it work, right? Which again, I referenced again the Sgt. Pepper album, and the fact that they make a thing of it being about a circus type of thing, But of course, not all the songs are like that, are they? But it's just like a variety of different ideas all sort of put together. But it seems like they should go with one another. But really, they don't. So there is certainly something going on there that makes that work. Because it's actually very difficult to write a song that's got lots of parts in that work. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously there are other structures, and there are other possibilities of looking at this, like for instance, the hero's journey type of thing that you get. Hollywood uses it all the time. Obviously, Star Wars is a great example of that, and it's something that Joseph Campbell, who was a sort of American professor on ancient stories and myths and religions and stuff like that, had picked up this idea of the hero's journey. So are you familiar with that concept? Okay. So if you think of the Star Wars thing, you got the chap starting out in the case of Star Wars. He doesn't know who he is. And there's some upheaval in his life that starts him on the journey. And as he follows that journey, he starts to discover things about himself and then about the world. And then there will be another sort of trauma, which then takes him to the next level and so on. And gradually he gets back to the beginning. So he returns home. And the other thing is that, he's scarred, but he has knowledge and he has something that he brings back. So that's the classic thing. Lord of the Rings, another good example of that journey, right? You could even say that with that song, with Stairway to Heaven. There is that sort of thing where it's building and building, and maybe if you looked at the lyrics, that I reckon there'll be something in there that you could sort of go, who is this lady who's got everything, who just can buy everything? Who is she? Right, so some other ideas of songs that you think have got an interesting structure? Doesn't have to be a 3-act structure, I'm just suggesting. I've got some ideas, but let's see if you could. It's quite tricky, this, isn't it? When you sort of think, because you sort of go, I think I know some, but I just can't place them.
I mean, for me, the structure of this particular song, although you said about it being in acts, but I mean, how did they make something that's so different, and the transitioning from one to the other, how to connect that's the thing. It's how you, I know it's very clever, but I don't know how do they connect it.
I'll tell you a couple of things about the song. That chord progression is more or less, okay, he varies it a little bit, it's more or less the same chords. So the very first set of chords are loosely A minor, G, F, and E, right? Which is the same chord progression for Babe, I'm Gonna Leave, which is an earlier Led Zeppelin number, which does the same thing, starts off with acoustic guitars and all the rest of it and finishes on a heavy guitar part. And that was on the first album. I think it was the first album, first or second album. So Stairway to Heaven is on Led Zeppelin 4. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on there. Now, there's also a little chromatic passing, like a chromatic bass line that goes down in that song, and it's there in Babe, I'm Gonna Leave as well. Now, Jimmy Page was very influenced by a guitarist called Davy Graham. And Davy Graham, probably most famous Davy Graham guitar piece, was called Angie. Now, it's not Angie by the Stones, but Angie, A-N-J-I. And the chord progression is A minor, G, and F, and possibly E, or it goes back up to G, I can't remember, but it's the same chord, same key. Interesting point. And it does a very similar thing with the melody at the top as Babe, I'm Gonna Leave does. So I think that chord progression although there's another section where it varies and goes off and does other things and then comes back. But that is the chord progression for the guitar solo, as well as the intro. And then when it goes into the heavy chords after the guitar solo, same chords. So that sort of ties it together, in my opinion. I think that's what it is.
But just talking about some songs that have an interesting theme to them. Quite a few Led Zeppelin songs have that, element where you wouldn't have put like the first half with the second half. Black
Yes.
Dog.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Heartbreaker.
Yeah.
So that actually that's a good segue to another thing. Heartbreaker has got, it's like two songs stuck together. There's a guitar break in the middle, and then it goes back into the original set of chords. So it's like a sandwich.
Yeah.
Now, that incidentally that was based on two riffs taken from a song by Howlin' Wolf, I think. The two guitar riffs. So the first one, let's get this right. No, that's not strictly true. The second part is a Howlin' Wolf riff, as far as I can remember. Anyway, but the point is that they were always looking for ideas. But this idea of the bit sandwiched in the middle, Badge by the Cream does that.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of Eric Clapton songs that do that. So
Layla goes off on one.
yeah, I was going to talk about Layla later, because it's like that bit and then that bit.
Yes.
But things like there's a song called Presence of the Lord from the Rainbow Concert. I think he did it with Blind Faith. But that has got the song, this really good wah-wah guitar middle bit, and then the song again. So he uses that idea a lot, where you're doing that. So, and the same with Zeppelin. So that's another thing you could look at and go, that's an interesting idea. Day in the Life by the Beatles, same thing. Okay. Just two songs, something sandwiched in between, sort of thing. Okay. Can you think of any songs like that that you could, it goes off somewhere and comes back again? You will tomorrow. You'll be like, oh yeah, hang on a minute, there's that, because that's how these things work. But
I think another song by Led Zeppelin, I think, which does that is The Ocean.
I'm not familiar with that. What's that on? Houses of Holy or something like that?
Yeah, it says Houses of Holy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with that album. Okay. All right. So you mentioned Layla. Okay, Elise, do you know that one? Clapton. Well, Derek and the Dominos, really. It's funny because Clapton's sort of very famous for that song, but really, it's actually Duane Allman that does all the heavy lifting in that song. Really, plays all the slide guitar parts and everything. That's the thing that really stands out. And then, of course, you have the piano part at the end. Now, that's an interesting song because part of me goes, well, yeah, that's almost like, I can't quite make it a 3-act thing, but it's like one of these films that the first half of it's in black and white, and then it goes into colour, like The Wizard of Oz or something. Because it goes somewhere else, doesn't it, that song? So I listened to that. Oh, I won't get you to listen to that now because that's even longer. But say tomorrow, if you get a bit of time, just have a listen to the whole song. The first part of that, with the famous guitar part, would stand up as a song, as a pop song, well, as a single. But I'm not sure how memorable it would have been without that second bit.
He does it acoustically now, doesn't he? Just the kind of the first bit. He does that quite a lot on.
I think it just depends where you see him.
Yeah.
Because you imagine playing that song since 1970. It's about right, isn't it? That's a long time.
Playing the same thing.
50 years playing the same song. There was an interview I was listening to with Roger Daltrey, and the person said, "How do you manage to do those numbers after all this time?" He said, "There's only one song that I really of Pete's that I just totally bored with, and that's Won't Get Fooled Again." And he said, and I don't know why. I think it's because everybody expects me to do that primeval scream in it. And he said, no, I can't do that anymore because it just blows me away. I can't do anything else if I do that. But everything else, that's pretty amazing, actually, that you could still be doing, Pinball Wizard or whatever. It's amazing. So that's it. Doing that thing, but there's two sections to a song, or I think to really pull that off well, again, there's got to be some feeling that you're traveling somewhere. And maybe the thing about Layla is that first part is full of angst, I would say. The second part has no lyrics, and it's got a really lovely sort of tuneful piano part with lots of twiddly guitar over the top of it.
It's almost like a ballad.
Well, it is a ballad, yeah, with no
Lyrics.
No lyrics. So maybe that's trying to say something that probably if you ask Clapton, he wouldn't know anyway. Because it's just one of those things. I think that's the creative process often allows you to do things that has some meaning that you don't know what it is. And sometimes I think that might be the most effective way of creating, is actually not really being that concerned about why. Right, so let's have some examples of some songs that you think don't work. Because we had a couple of great ones last week, and maybe we could have a listen to one. It might want, we may have to sort of cut it short because sometimes they can be a bit painful when they're that bad. But you came up with a few ideas, Duncan, last week.
Yeah, I did actually, didn't I? There was a Rush one.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because most of Rush's songs are quite complex, right?
Yeah.
And to have a Rush song that doesn't work.
That was,
let's see if we can find it, and then we'll have a listen to that. How long is it?
That's a very short one, actually.
Oh, okay.
Madrigal.
Madrigal.
Off the Farewell to Kings album.
Right. Madrigal. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a listen to that?
Yep.
Could you remind me Pink Floyd in a minute? I'm not saying that it didn't work. I'm just saying, just remind me of Pink Floyd because it was something.
You're going to pause the recording.
Oh yes, that's a point. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so that was interesting, wasn't it? Madrigal. So that didn't go anywhere. I mentioned Pink Floyd. So obviously a lot of Pink Floyd stuff. Shine On You Crazy Diamond, a good example. And again, you could look at that and go, yeah, there's definitely a section there which doesn't stand up as a song on its own. I think that's the point when we look at the thing as if it's like acts. They're not a song on their own. If you strip them away, it'd be like, okay, where's it going to go now? So that's got obviously like a big guitar solo in it, but it's also got a saxophone solo. So there's a lot of possibilities. So there's a number of Pink Floyd songs that work very well. So I mentioned a lot of the prog rock bands that didn't succeed with lots of musical ideas. And I would include Yes in that lot, actually, although I liked them quite a lot back in the day. But it always sounded like there were like 15 songs on one track that didn't necessarily go together. Okay, so any other thoughts of songs that don't really make it?
Paul McCartney did quite a lot, didn't he? Where
a lot of songs that didn't make it. Yes, he did.
Well, he did songs which are iconic, like "Band on the Run."
Yeah, that's a great song.
But you wouldn't necessarily put those parts together. No.
But they do seem to make sense, though, don't they? But why?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine a bit of the song without the other bit because you know it so well. But it is odd, isn't it?
Yes, but don't you think? I know it was used for like, they wrote some stuff for a Bond movie. But Live and Let Die, that particular, Live and Let Die, obviously was written for, was used in a Bond movie. Actually sounds like it is a Bond movie. To me.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean about, like, when we were saying last week about that sort of narrative thing, that you can sense that there's a story there. Which is really what Elisa was saying with the lyrics for Stairway. You look at the lyrics and it's telling you something. You don't know what it is necessarily, what they're telling you, but it's implying something. So a couple of other suggestions of songs I think are really good, personally. Argent, if you've ever heard of this band, but they did God Gave Rock and Roll to You. That was covered by whoever it was covered by. Was it not Motley Crue? Was it Kiss? Was it Kiss? Did it?
Yeah, it was Kiss, I think.
Yeah.
So, but they did one called "It's Only." Was it called? It's not. It's Only Rock and Roll. God Gave Rock and Roll to You, and what was the other one? But the Rod Argent was a keyboard player who was in the band The Zombies as well. So he had quite a career. Let me just think, Argent. Hold Your Head Up.
Okay.
There's another good song of theirs. So they were quite good at doing elaborate numbers. Focus. Dutch band.
Yeah.
Hocus Pocus is the most bizarre. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, it's horrendous.
I love it, but it
Oh,
is
do you?
bizarre.
I can't,
You're not a fan?
can't bear it. I can't bear it.
So, do you think it doesn't work as a structure?
There's something about it. I can't. I mean, it's it's an okay tune, but there's something about it that just annoys the heck out of me. It's like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, it is like a nursery.
And it has me reaching for the there's got to be something better than this button on the car every time I hear it on Planet Rock.
Well, it's actually quite troubling.
Right.
It is quite troubling.
Mm.
Mind you, it's about goblins and trolls and stuff like that. So,
right.
But there's other focus numbers. House of the King, which was a lot of that focus stuff was used for TV themes as well later on. That's a very clever piece of music. If you find House of the King, I would say you would recognize the opening tune, and it's amazing. And it sounds like it shouldn't be them. It sounds as if it's Jethro Tull.
Oh, right, okay.
All right.
Okay.
And that's got another section in the middle with this incredible guitar solo in it, and it goes back into the song again.
Yeah.
So that brings me to Jethro Tull, where's another band I would say could definitely pull off a song, But again, we're talking about sort of like a medieval fair. The whole band was like a medieval fair. Okay, so does that give you some ideas about if you're writing, that structure can be an important thing, that you might have an idea that it doesn't want to go anywhere else, type of thing. It's not obvious that you've got a chorus. It's not obvious you've got a middle, you haven't got a bridge. Maybe that idea could just circle around and then go somewhere different.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this before last time, but the solo of November Rain, Guns N' Roses, is so different to the rest of the song. It's almost as though I wondered if Slash had written the solo and not had an idea what song to put in, and then Axl Rose and him got together and said, well, we got this song, we got this song, and then Slash goes, oh, right, I tell you what, it could fit in the back end of this one.
It's quite possible that could have happened.
That's how it feels to me, that one.
Because the first part of the song is just really simple.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing really that elaborate
with
the chords and stuff, is there?
It's a ballad. Again, it starts off as a ballad and it builds.
Yeah. You mentioned Freebird.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, again, that's another song that might be worth listening to. Because that has definitely got a feel of, there's this song, and it's got another little bit in there, and then you got this sort of, and it builds to the sort of mega guitar solo or twin guitar break.
Yeah. It's
one of those songs that you feel that you should learn the guitar solo, but in the end you think,
no. No one wants to hear that again.
Well, it's best left for them.
Yeah.
It's a very good song, but
yeah.
And there's probably a few other bands like Steely Dan that might be worth thinking about.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there are songs that are long and that are complex, but they fit together so well, like Hotel California.
Okay, I deliberately didn't put that one into the to the mix
Oh,
actually,
okay.
but
Okay.
yes, it did cross my mind. It's just that Hotel California is really, you know, the structure of the song is not really any different. It seems to go. It is the same song.
Same song. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Whereas,
But that was the point that I was making, is that there are some epic songs that seem to fit and progress, but they do it so well. It's seamless.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so a couple of others, as you said, the Isley Brothers, Summer Breeze, and Who's That Lady?
All right.
Okay. Again, that tends to be more of the, well, actually, that does go somewhere else. Both of those sort of go somewhere else, I think. Okay. So structure is really important, I would say. And again, that's the type of thing where you could look to some other art form to see what they do, to see if you can get some ideas for what you're doing musically. I think we'll sort of talk next time about genre, you know, styles. So I won't talk about that now, but that's another important thing where you can, or how you can revive an idea that's actually really, really simple. Like you've written a standard pop song, right? And you go, yeah, you know, it's okay. But it's sort of obvious. So what do you
then
do?
you've got to chop it in half, have you, and put a bit in the middle to make a sandwich?
Well, that might be the thing, you see. That might be the thing. Or it just needs to go somewhere unexpected. Or you do something unexpected with it. And so, but we'll talk more about that, I think, next time, because there's a lot of examples of this that you might not realize until you sort of step back and go, oh yeah. And then you start to see it everywhere. Right. So maybe that's the thing. So look, there's a list of things then I would suggest you have a listen to, just when you get time. And as soon as you do that, you will then, you'll remember other songs. You go, oh yeah, what about that? And it's quite good when you get a song, you sort of go, that's really interesting, but I don't know why that works. You don't need to know why. It's just knowing that those things are out there. And that might be the case of just, if you're writing something, just nick it. You know, if Jimmy Page can write 2 classic songs off the back end of a chord sequence by somebody he admired, then come on.
Without being sued.
Well, you can't sue somebody for nicking your chord progression.
No, you can't. You can't indeed. No, that's all right. That's fair game.
It is. But and in actual fact, you have to steal.
Yeah.
Because there aren't enough notes.
No.
And certainly all the old blues stuff and all the old rock and roll stuff, it's all over the same thing. You know, somebody turned around and went, well, that sounds like my song, you know. You wouldn't have had any rock and roll, would you? How many rock and roll songs sound the same?
Yep.
Right?
Load.
Yeah. Hundreds of them. Right? But that would also be the same with any, you know, country music or ska or blue beat or whatever. If they're only using a set number of chords, it's gonna sound similar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Hope that's been interesting.
Very, thank you.
Great.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
and have a listen to some of those more unusual numbers. We didn't mention Bowie at all today, but we mentioned him a lot last time, so yeah, the rest. Oh yeah, another band I just thought of is ELO.
Oh yeah, of course. They did some epics, didn't they?
Yeah. So have a listen to any of those. Keep your ears open and just sort of, think about how amazing those ideas are. All right.
Okay.
Good one. Right. So I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Vic.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank
Cheers
you.
then.
Bye, everyone.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.